Good evening, North Mecklenburg Republican Women's Group. I'm Jim O'Neill. I'm the District Attorney in Forsyth County, and I'm running for Attorney General for 2016 for the state of North Carolina. I'm sorry I can't be with you personally tonight. I've already committed to coach boys lacrosse up in Winston-Salem, and those 40 boys are not going to understand why their coach isn't at their game tonight. So forgive me for not being with you personally. Who is the Attorney General in North Carolina? The Attorney General is the top prosecutor and top law enforcement agent for the entire state. By statute, the top prosecutor takes and prosecutes cases when asked to do so by the local district attorney. The Attorney General is responsible for keeping the state and its citizens safe. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to tell you why you should care about who your next Attorney General is going to be. In Forsyth County, several years ago, we had an elderly couple that spent their retirement delivering Meals on Wheels. One day, they came upon a house that they had often delivered to, and they knocked on the door. The person that was living in that house was an invalid and couldn't get around. When they knocked on that door, two individuals came rushing at them. They shot Edith Magnus in the back of the head. They turned their gun then on Mr. Magnus and fired upon him several times. By the grace of God, Mr. Magnus was not killed. He survived. Inside the house, they beat Robert Denning to death, a person who couldn't defend himself. Those two individuals that committed these horrendous and heinous crimes took off for Virginia. They were captured and brought back to Forsyth County, where they stood trial. I was the prosecutor in that case, and I prosecuted both of those individuals. The shooter in that case was given death by the jury. The non-shooter was given life, which is consistent with North Carolina law. I tell you this story, ladies and gentlemen, because this family, the Magnus family, had the matriarch of their family ripped out of their lives suddenly one day, unexpectedly. This family never had any contact with the criminal justice system. As the prosecutor in that case, I tried what I believed was a perfect case and tried to bring some justice to the Magnus family. Once I have completed prosecution of that case, it's now turned over to the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General has to shepherd that case through the appellate process up to the United States Supreme Court. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if the person you turn that case over to, the Attorney General, has never prosecuted a case in their entire career. That's why it is so important that our next Attorney General is an actual prosecutor who understands and appreciates the suffering that victims go through and families have to endure through the court system and the appellate process. Those victims deserve somebody who understands the criminal justice system inside and out and will fight tirelessly for them all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. The difference between myself and every single candidate in this race, whether Republican or Democrat, is that I've been doing this job for 20 years. The other people in this race combined don't have half the prosecutorial experience that I bring. This job is important, and it should be important to your family because it boils down to safety. Jim O'Neill is the one candidate in this race that can keep you safe. I have the experience and the know-how. I am battle-tested from every case imaginable, from a barking dog up to capital first-degree murder. I've done it all. I've seen it all. I'm prepared to continue protecting North Carolinians. Here in Forsyth County, I operate the fourth largest prosecutorial office in the state with the fourth largest budget. We've had tremendous success here in Forsyth County with some of the ideas and proposals that I've put in place. When I first took office back in 2009, I was asked by our county commissioners to try and figure out something to do with our jail population. Our jail population was exploding. We had 1,300 beds that were being occupied every single night. And what that means to the taxpayer is that each jail bed cost $80 a night. We took a long, hard look at some of those individuals that were staying in our local jail here. What we decided to do was focus our resources, focus law enforcement's resources on going after the people that are actually causing harm to us. Those individuals that were sleeping in the park and spending 30 days in our facility at taxpayer expense, that to me was not a good way to spend taxpayer dollars. And so what we did was, by focusing on the really bad people in society and taking the other people that were guilty of small misdemeanors, we would get them out the next day. And what that allowed Forsyth County to do was drop our jail population from more than 1,300 beds a night down to less than 1,000. And it has stayed at less than 1,000 ever since 2009. What that has meant to our tax-paying base here in Forsyth County is that with a reduction of more than 300 beds per night, times $80 a night, that's a savings of $24,000 that the taxpayers here in Forsyth County can now use towards other things. Also in Forsyth County, we have instituted programs designed to protect the elderly. Unfortunately, the elderly in our society are some of our most vulnerable victims, and they deserve our protection. Unfortunately, there's unscrupulous people that would come through town and offer to repair a small hole in a roof for $25,000. We've also learned that families, unfortunately, are taking advantage of the elders and their family and draining their bank accounts. We put together a special prosecution unit designed to protect the elderly. It's the only one in the state. In addition, in Forsyth County, we realized that there were many registered sex offenders that live here in Forsyth County, much like they do in the rest of the part of the state. But in Forsyth County, the difference is we have prosecutors that work closely with law enforcement to be sure that the sex offenders are registering the way they should. They are not living near schools where they are prohibited by law from living. We have taken tremendous strides in Forsyth County to be sure that not only are our children safe, but that our elders are safe as well. Another program we instituted here in Forsyth County is designed to go after the chronic offenders. I believe that 85% to 90% of the crime that is committed in this country is committed by 15% of the population. When you focus on the really bad people and take your resources and put it towards taking them out of society, you keep the rest of society safe. It's a simple approach, but it's an approach that has worked here in Forsyth County. We've had tremendous success with some of the programs I've instituted here. Jim O'Neill understands how to keep people safe. It's what I've been doing for 20 years. When you look at the rest of the state and you think about some of these programs that the people of Forsyth County have benefited from, as the Attorney General, I would have an opportunity to put these programs in play and suggest to everybody across the state that if you think about trying to keep your elderly safe, trying to keep your children safe, and trying to figure out productive, structural ways to keep society safe, Forsyth County has been a model across the state. Many years ago, Forsyth County was at the forefront of domestic violence and protecting women in our state. Forsyth County led the way in prosecutions. When I first started as a prosecutor in Forsyth County, I was asked to be the first dedicated domestic violence prosecutor, which meant that you often have to try and help women and the battered in our society get away from their batterers. The program here in Forsyth County is called Safe on 7, SOS. And the reason we call it Safe on 7 is because women can come here and we can get them protection immediately. We can get them restraining orders from their batterers. We can find them shelters. We can provide them phones. We can let them meet with an investigator and meet with a prosecutor all in one stop. The idea is that we don't have women bouncing around from government agency to government agency trying to get assistance. We provide it all here, one stop. Here in Forsyth County, we also try to protect our business owners, especially our small business owners. There are individuals, unfortunately, as we all know, that get hired by companies and they go in and they begin stealing from those companies. In Forsyth County, not only do we prosecute those thieves, but we also do everything we can to make the employer whole again by seeking restitution from these defendants. We have enjoyed tremendous success here in Forsyth County in terms of keeping people safe. That has been my job, and that is what I get up and do every single day. I try to figure out a way how we can keep Forsyth County safer and safer. A couple of years ago, there was a report done coming out of Raleigh that compared the district attorney's offices across the state statistically. Forsyth County ranked at the top or near the top in every single one of those categories. So we are proud of the accomplishments that we have made here in Forsyth County. And we have the ideas and the concepts to keep the rest of the state safe as well. One of the biggest problems that is facing North Carolinians right now is our state crime lab, which is under the Attorney General's office. I am the only candidate in this race that has actually had to wait for a lab result back. Others may talk about it, but they've never actually had to wait. And I'm going to tell you why it's important that we correct what's been going on down at the SBI crime lab. It can take anywhere between 18 to 24 months before we get a result back on a case, on a typical rape case. So during that time, while that lab kit is sitting on somebody's shelf down in Raleigh, the perpetrator of this crime is walking around the streets. In Forsyth County, I decided to do something about it. We were no longer going to wait unreasonable delays to get justice in cases. In Forsyth County, we built our own lab. We brought in a private lab that is set up down in our Beatty Center, which is our evidence room, and the private lab now is able to get us results in cases in 3 to 5 business days. That is tremendous savings, not only for the people involved in the criminal justice system, but for the victims of crime themselves. By partnering with a private lab, we've seen tremendous results here in Forsyth County. I believe that's one of the ways that we can help the state lab as well. By getting that backlog under control, we'd be able to get the state crime lab running properly again. Several years ago, when the legislature contemplated moving the SBI out from underneath the Attorney General and putting him under DPS, I was one of the few district attorneys to come forward and say this was a bad idea. You look around the state right now and ask the rest of the district attorneys across the state how they feel about this decision to move the SBI under DPS. The SBI was the crown jewel of investigative agencies, and by putting them under DPS, we merged them in with thousands of other law enforcement agencies, which has watered their effectiveness down. As your next Attorney General, I will do everything I can to return the SBI back to its rightful place underneath the Attorney General's office so they can conduct proper investigations. In addition to my daytime job, I have also served on a number of boards here in my community. I have served on SCAN, which stands for Stop Child Abuse Now. I have served on the Industries for the Blind, and I have also served on hospice. All three of those agencies do tremendous work in our community, and I'm proud that I'm a former board member of each one of those agencies. I also, in all my free time, like to give back to the community in terms of helping kids out in lacrosse. I've been coaching high school lacrosse for close to 15 years now. I also coach the youth leagues as well, because I believe that a coach who's a real role model for kids can do awesome things in keeping those kids on the straight and narrow and being a positive person in their lives. Here in Forsyth County, I'm a proud member of Holy Family Catholic Church. I have 3 children, all under the age of 7. So yes, it stays interesting in my house 24 hours a day. But I believe that the Attorney General position itself is so important to the people of the state. My family's going to grow up in the state, and I want to be sure that they are protected. I want to be sure my community is protected. I want to be sure the state of North Carolina is protected. The only way we keep North Carolinians safe is by seeing to it that the top prosecutor, the top law enforcement agent in this state, is someone with real prosecutorial experience. I've seen it all, and I've done it all in terms of what goes on in a courtroom. I am experienced, and I'm going to hit the ground running on day one. I encourage you to go onto my website, jimforag.com, jimforag.com, and look and see for yourself about my past track record. I will put my accomplishments up against anybody in this race, Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter. There's only one candidate in this race that knows how to keep people safe, and that's me, Jim O'Neill. I would humbly ask that on March 15th, when you go out and cast your vote, cast a vote for keeping North Carolinians safe. Jim O'Neill for Attorney General of North Carolina. Thank you all.